So we're going to go into the neurobiochemical effects of authentic paraphrasing. So just as we talked about with last time, the types of questions that you have an effect on the brain, same with the role of paraphrasing. So it has this effect on a person's brain. So when you paraphrase well with an authentic paraphrase, you're actually changing the brain chemistry.
So Art and Bob wrote an article about paraphrasing. When they first created this work about 35 years ago, they didn't really take the brain research and infuse it into this work. They just knew it worked. Since then, they really did some research around the impact of the brain. And like Jenny said, that's where they found that has an impact on the brain. So they wrote this article. And when Art and Bob tend to write, they tend to write in a very high level way. So this is a pretty dense article. So we're taking just a little piece of it and we're going to break it down for you. We'll give little pieces of it, give you an opportunity to do what we call read and respond, where you'll read the paragraph and then respond with the partner. So make sure you have a partner at your table. It could be the same partner that you just had, but make sure you have a partner at your table to read and respond with this article.
So the article is actually used in the advanced cognitive coaching seminar, so it's not in your learning guide. So the excerpts that you're going to be reading with your partner, we will put up on the screen one excerpt at a time.
Here's the first one. So respond with your partner. What does that make you think about?
Did you write back?
Well, and it relates to her. Just gotta remember to say it. Like virtual courses, also known as. It's gonna come out.
Is one part of approachability. Because he's still.
Yeah,
Okay, that's okay.
yes.
That's fine.
Okay, here is your next excerpt from the article.
Go ahead and respond with your partner about that.
Right.
Also the foundation is more. I like the
Walgreens just called while you were talking about that. Walgreens. Speaking of
Here's the next part. Respond with your partner.
Succession, you don't use that. Instead of, I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know what you're talking about.
Here's the next one.
This is where it really gets heavy.
All right, respond to this one with your partner.
She has the perfect one. If you do it wrong, they do. If I was fine, yeah.
Friend, I got
On her first one. Right, but you've seen it, right?
So here's the last part of this, which really kind of sums it all up.
We could have started with this one, but you needed all the background, right?
And that's a lot. That's a lot to say. If you don't ever paraphrase, no one can ever think. And so is it that black and white? Probably not. I just think about this specifically for a couple reasons. One is with teams. When you think about that, when you are throwing out demanding questions or hard questions with teams, and no one is paraphrasing, if someone is feeling like, you know, you're kind of attacking me, you're threatening me, you're pushing me here, that thinking is going to get shut down. unless someone is paraphrasing. The other thing I think about is with students. This is one of the reasons why calling on students who don't have their hand up, and I've seen this happen where 5 hands will be up and the teacher will say, oh, no, you. And it's like, that person didn't have their hand up probably because they were in this cognitive stress where it was that fight or flight. They're feeling a threat, maybe because they don't know, and so they can't think. And when you're calling on people who can't think, you're almost setting them up for failure. And of course, teachers aren't trying to do that. It's just, they might have the answers, it's just in that moment, they can't think. So that paraphrasing is crucial. Of course, one-on-one with coaching, that paraphrasing is crucial. That's why we have that pattern of pause, paraphrase, pause, pose questions. Because that paraphrase is so crucial.
When I was a student and as a teacher, I had a similar situation happen with popcorn reading. So they, as a reading specialist, I know, it's a sensitive issue,
Yeah.
we were all reading specialists. So, you know when your turn is coming sometimes with popcorn reading, or we would go up and down the aisle, we would be sitting in rows, and you knew when your turn was coming. And I felt so threatened by having to read out loud that I only looked at the part that I knew. So I just start counting paragraphs. Like there's 5 people in front of me, I'm gonna be paragraph 6, I'm just gonna stare at paragraph 6 until the kid in front of me stops talking, and then I'm gonna go. My thinking was completely shut down for any of the other content that was coming from it. And I didn't understand why I felt that way until I was a reading specialist. And I realized that that is a practice that shuts down thinking completely, because you're creating a threatening situation for a student, especially one who's not a good reader. So if that's an anxiety that you hold, or even if it isn't, it wasn't, reading out loud wasn't that bad, it was just that I knew my turn was coming and I was anxious about it. That whole feeling, so it doesn't have to be this survival threat mode, anything that makes you feel threatened in some way. So if it's an insecurity of yours, something that causes anxiety, you're shutting down the thinking. So think about the field dependent and field independent people in your teams, like Tina mentioned. If somebody feels attacked, like, oh, I thought I was doing the team a favor by going home and making this test all by myself. And the facilitator of the group says, so we really need to be making a collaborative test. Right away, I'm like, oh, I did something wrong. And unless, we come back around and we talk about it and there's a paraphrase to make me feel validated for what I did do, the effort that I made, I'm kind of shut out of the conversation. So it happens with kids, but it happens with adults just the same.
So how often would you paraphrase in a group setting?
A group setting, you definitely do not paraphrase every person who talks. In a group setting, it's more the themes and patterns that you notice after a little while. And there's no rhyme or reason really as to, okay, after 4 people talk, you paraphrase. It's once you have some good information on the table and it's time to make sure, okay, let's make sure we have a common understanding with this, then you paraphrase those themes and patterns.
So is that a way to dissipate tension? Like, so for example, when you're facilitating a group and you've got 2 people that are kind of going at each other, I guess my question is, how do you approach it such that you're asymmetrical? Does that make sense? And so I'm sure you've been in situations like that where you're like meeting and these 2 people just have very different, or they think that one another's the problem. How do you go about, like, I guess my question is, what kinds of questions do you pose to the group to get the desired state back to where it should be?
So groups also have what we call them energy sources, but states of mind. And so you are assessing where the group is with their states of mind. And then you're posing questions to bring up those states of mind. So if interdependence is low, then you're going to pose a question about interdependence. If flexibility is low, they're not able to see those other perspectives, you would pose a question about flexibility.
Based on the goal of whatever the task of the group is, correct?
It could be, yes.
Okay.
It's just how do you bring up, or it's this state of mind is low, so how do I bring up that state of mind?
That in that situation may not be true to the problem resolving that. It may be that they're trying to plan something together, and the questions that you're going to ask to the group are in that interdependence level. So it may be that it's a different kind of conversation. And it is tricky with groups. Interdependence questions have been really successful for me. in those kind of situations, because oftentimes, it's a generalization, but oftentimes they don't realize the value that the other person might be bringing to the table, and sometimes those questions can just enlighten the situation a bit.
So paraphrasing is not just verbal. Paraphrasing can happen non-verbally as well.
So there's 3 categories for this. Characters, concepts in space. So on page 50 in your learning guide, you have these 3 types of examples. You will notice, and we talked about nonverbals, that people will often make references to things with their hands and not just their voice. So they might point to a space over there, they might use something that's physically in the room and refer to it. If you can mimic that when you're giving the paraphrase, then it signals to them once again that you understand what they're saying, or you're at least trying to.
So characters or concepts in space are either people or